Okay, well, here we are, our first ever Wednesday night uh, streaming meeting. And I'm happy that you're here with us. I see that there are a few people watching, and I'm sure we'll get a few more. So, welcome. So, just to give you a little sense of what's going to happen, we're going to follow our usual order of service and see how that goes. I welcome your comments about that. Um, we watched the Dropkick Murphys play a gig last night on a St. Patrick's Day concert in an empty bar, and I thought, boy, that must have been really uncomfortable. And here I am giving Dharma talks to an empty room, but you're here, so I'll try to remember that. It feels a little odd to be sitting here by myself talking to my camera, but I'm happy to know that we're able to do this. So our usual order of service, for those of you who haven't been to one of our meetings in a while, is a little bit different than it used to be. So you'll see that we've evolved over time. So um, we're going to follow the typical routine. Um, you'll encounter some things that may be new to you. If you're used to seeing me at White Sands, our Wednesday services are a little bit less formal, a little more conversational. Tonight might be a little bit more formal than you're used to if you go on Wednesdays. I'm not real sure how this will work, but we'll find out. You are welcome to ask questions, make comments. I'm monitoring that on my little tablet here so we can have a discussion after the Dharma talk. So the order of things is that we're going to do some chanting. Hopefully you downloaded the chanting book. You can chant along with me. So usually people are reluctant to chant too loud when it's unfamiliar to you, but you're by yourself in the comfort of your own living room, so you can chant as loud as you want to. Get that practice in. And then I'll do a guided meditation. So usually on Wednesday nights, sometimes we do guided, sometimes we do silent. It would seem to be kind of strange for me to sit here and not do anything for 20 minutes. So I'll do a guided meditation. I'm going to time that to right at 20 minutes. So if you don't want to listen to me, you're welcome to turn your volume off or mute the sound and just sit on your own for 20 minutes. You can set your timer or whatever you normally do. So, and then we'll come back and I'll give a Dharma talk, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, respond to any comments that you make. You can chat with each other. It's right there. I can see what you say. So, we don't ask for money at our Wednesday night meetings. There's a bowl up on the altar. People put money in it. People, you can usually tell what to do. Since it's online, it's not as obvious, and there's an extra step involved. But if you want to donate, if you want to support what we do, I still have to pay the rent on the church, even though we're not meeting there. The internet costs, all those things still have to be met. So you're welcome to go to our website and hit the donate button and make a donation if you'd like to support what we do here. So let's get started. So we're going to start with the Versa-Vicesa. If you have a Kesa or a Roxu, you can do this. If you don't have a Kesa or a Roxu, you're still, for this next hour or so, taking on the robe of the Buddha. You're still taking on this practice. So I'm going to put it on my head, which signifies putting the Dharma higher than my ego, higher than myself. So you put whatever you want to on your head and say these words along with me. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. And now the Gatha of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. So we'll make an incense offering. So if you have an altar at home and a Buddha, you can do 3 vows to your Buddha, or you can do 3 vows to ours. However, you can do it internally. Whatever works for you, 3 vows. The fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present with us now. The fragrance of this incense fills our room, protects and guards our minds from wrong thinking. The fragrance of this incense unites us with precepts, concentration, and insight. We offer it for all beings. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I shall become one with the Buddha. I resolve that I shall each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I shall become one with the Dharma. The gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I shall become one with the Sangha. In the spirit of universal fellowship and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge myself to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. So we read the Metta Sutta together. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. Metta prayer. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. So as I said, we'll do a guided meditation now. So 20 minutes. So if you want to set your timer for 20 minutes, or just follow along with me. To begin, just take a few deep breaths. And let your belly be nice and soft, your abdomen relax, so that your belly can expand completely and contract completely. You don't have to breathe unnaturally, but just nice long breaths. Let your lungs fill and empty. And then let your breath settle to a comfortable rhythm. Again, just breathe naturally. You don't have to breathe any special way. But breathing in, be aware that you're breathing in. Breathing out, be aware that you're breathing out. We've been working during our meetings with the Guardian meditations for a while, and people seem to be getting a lot out of that practice. So I'll guide you through the Guardian meditations, and this is something that you can employ in your own practice, just really to establish attention at the beginning of your meditation practice. So the first of the Guardians is recollection of the Buddha. So the Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha, was a human being just like us. He did things that we can do, realize something we can realize. And then out of his compassion, He spent 45 years teaching his path, leaving his path for us so that we have this path of practice. We can purify our minds too. So you can contemplate this for a moment. Or you can just, as you breathe out, let these words anchor your attention on your breath. Wisdom, compassion, purity. This is the practice. We develop wisdom. We develop compassion. And we train our minds to be free from patterns of thought that bring us back to stress. So take a moment just to do that. So the second guardian is metta bhavana, cultivating goodwill. So when you're doing this on your own and you just want to use this to set your intention for breath meditation, you can just recite the phrase to yourself, may all beings be happy. But we'll do a little bit more with that today. We'll start by developing goodwill for ourselves. So as you exhale, just let this thought emerge silently from your heart. May I be happy. And we don't mean may I have the things that I want or may I strive for something. We really mean right now, in this moment, in this breath, experiencing that happiness that comes from within. May I be happy. May I be free from animosity. And if there's any anger or any ill will toward anyone in your heart right now, just set that aside. You can be angry later if you really want to, but for now, give yourself freedom from that. And experience what that's like. Just to breathe, be happy, be free from animosity. May I be free from stress and affliction. So as we're meditating, all kinds of things come into our consciousness. Sounds, memories, feelings, physical sensations. So whatever comes up, you can let it be or let it go. If it's a thought, there's no reason to let it hook you. Just let it pass. Sounds can come and go. Some things maybe hang around, physical sensations, maybe they won't release. That's okay, just let them be. There's no reason to push anything away, no reason to hold on to anything. And if we don't nurture stress, we don't turn it into an affliction. We don't nurture a worry, we don't turn it into anxiety. May I be free from stress and affliction. May I look after myself with ease. So just guard the mind, notice where it goes. Bring it back to your object of meditation. Over and over again, if you have to, calmly, compassionately. And the third guardian is mindfulness of the body. First, let's send that loving kindness to all beings. May all beings be happy. And you can just imagine the warmth at your heart spreading out in all directions. This wish that all beings be happy, that all beings be free. So the resource we have for creating happiness for ourselves and others right now is this body and mind, this form, this awareness. So I find it helpful just to scan the body at this point. And just really be in your body. And aware that the body is not the self. The body is a changing process. It's made up of other things. It's made up of earth and water, air, combustion in the cells. All these things constantly changing. None of these things are really own. This is what I have to work with now. And the final guardian is the awareness that this is all impermanent. I like to recall something that Zen Master Dogen would say. Say, I respectfully remind you that life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us must strive to awaken. Awaken. Do not squander this life. And so use this awareness to develop some energy toward your practice and commitment to this spiritual practice. So we'll spend the remainder of our meditation time meditating on the breath. So find a place where it's easy to feel the breath, tip of the nose, center of your chest, maybe rise and fall of the belly. I like the belly. And just rest your attention there. Let your breath be the place you go to become calm. If your mind is very restless, you can note your breaths in, out, Ubudo, just to anchor your attention there. Or you can count your breath, breathing in, breathing out, counting 1, on up to 10, and then start over. Try to stay with each breath, one breath at a time. Notice the breath. The in-breath begins, it continues. There's a feeling of fullness. The out-breath begins, continues. There's a feeling of emptiness. The in-breath begins. Try to stay with each breath. You can't go back and breathe a breath over again. Stay with each one. And then you can connect your breaths, one after the other, each breath distinct, all connected, like a string of beads. Each bead is its own, and yet they're all connected to each other. And when you rest your mind someplace calm, the mind becomes calm. So you can calm your breath, and your mind will become calm with it. The bell will ring twice to end the meditation. When it rings the first time, bring your hands together in front of your heart. Two hands coming together as one gesture. The way wisdom and compassion come together as one practice. When it rings the second time, bow slightly. And then there's no need to rush right out of meditation. Take a couple of breaths. Come out gently. No hurry. So I know a number of you have you're welcome. I just noticed somebody made a comment. It will take me a while to not be distracted by all this technical stuff that's happening around me while I'm trying to do these things. But it's all new to me, so or at least pretty new. I haven't done too much of this before. Anyway, those of you who are regulars in DeLand got the meeting notice, and you know, when I send out the meeting notice every week, there's always a reading. And this week's reading was just a short quote from Nyanaponika Thera, who was a German-born Theravada monk who ordained in the Sri Lankan order. And he died in the 1990s, but he founded or was one of the founders of the Buddhist Publication Society. And he wrote a lot of essays and books and things like that, and taught some pretty well-known teachers. In fact, I know a few members of our congregation do online courses with Bhikkhu Bodhi and stuff like that. He was one of his teachers. So this was from an essay called Courageous Faith. Faith involves not merely a belief in the existence of a thing or in the truth of a creedal formula, but also confidence in the power of its object. Religious faith is the belief and confidence in the power of the supreme good, and Buddhist faith in particular, the belief in the incomparable power of the Noble Eightfold Path, and confidence in its purifying and liberating efficacy. So it's an interesting thing. I actually had planned to use that a couple of weeks ago, and for some reason, I put the notes together to go out, and then something happened when I hit send, I guess, and I didn't realize until the meeting that no one, myself included, had gotten the meeting notice, so nobody had seen that reading. And so much had changed after last Wednesday night And I looked at that and I said, well, the idea of courageous faith is even more relevant now than it was a week ago. So I thought, well, so I sent that out again. And this time, I hope everybody got it. I think so. And I thought I would talk about a little bit about the idea of faith in Buddhist practice, but in a different context. The Tara means elder, and that's kind of his title. Talks and put that in the context of the five bala, the five spiritual powers, and so I'll talk a little bit more about those. There's these things in Buddhism called the Jataka tales. These are stories about the Buddha's previous lives, and so he's a bodhisattva, and in one of them he was born a prince, and his father invites priests and seers over to bless him and suggest a name for him. And one seer predicts the prince will become a great master of 5 different weapons of war. And so he receives a name that means Prince Five Weapons. And when the prince is old enough, he goes to school and he masters the use of these 5 different weapons of combat. And so he travels around India after that and kind of surveying what's going to become his kingdom. And so one day he walks through a village and he's walking through the village and starting into a forest on the other side. And the villagers called out and say, don't go in there. And they explain that there's a monster in the forest called Sticky Hair. And the monster has killed everyone that's tried to pass through his woods. Well, to this prince, this young, strong master of combat arts and all that kind of stuff, that was as good as an invitation. So he wanted to see this monster for himself. And he wanted to stop it from terrorizing the villagers, who were, after all, going to be his subjects. And so he goes off into the woods, and pretty soon, sure enough, he's confronted with this horrible sight, this giant creature who's as tall as a tree, with a massive head, a gaping mouth filled with jagged brown teeth, and 2 huge yellow tusks. And this demon is covered all over with matted, stinky hair, and has blue hands and feet. And so it sees Prince Five Weapons and roars and he says, you look delicious. I think I'll eat you. Well, the prince was undaunted by this and he says, I'm Prince Five Weapons. I've come into the forest to find you and defeat you. And so first thing he does is he pulls out his bow and he starts shooting poison-tipped arrows at this monster. And he quickly learns why this monster is called Sticky Hair. The arrows just cling in this matted, gooey hair and do nothing at all to the monster. And so once he shoots until his quiver is empty and the monster just kind of shakes all over and the arrows fall out on the ground. So the prince then picks up his spear and hurls that at the monster, but it just kind of lodged in the hair and does no harm at all. So then he goes after him with a lance. Again, no effect. The long sword and massive hardwood club do no good whatsoever. And so the demon grins and he bares his teeth and he says, are you done? Can I eat you now? Well, the prince was even more determined than before. He says, look, I'm young and I'm strong and I'm a master of the fighting arts. I'll break you into pieces with my bare hands. And so he swings a fist and his hand lodges in the sticky fur. And pretty soon he's stuck hand and foot against this giant. But Prince Five Weapons had impressed the demon. Sticky Hair had never seen anyone so fearless. And so he wonders about that. And as he plucks him off of him and holds him up, he says, why aren't you afraid of me? And the prince thinks for a moment. All of his weapons of war had been useless. The strength of his body did nothing to defeat the monster. But he still had the power of his mind, the light of his conviction, the tireless strength of his determination. And so he thinks, well, maybe this weapon will conquer this beast. And he says, my greatest weapon is inside me. It's as sharp as a razor and as enduring as a diamond. And if you were to be so foolish as to swallow me, it would destroy you from within. Well, Sticky Hair sees that this is a very determined and earnest young man, and that kind of scares him a little bit. And so he decides to let Prince Five Weapons go. And in gratitude, the prince decides that he's going to help the monster out. And so he says, look, you were born a murderous demon because of unwholesome karma in your past. If you continue killing this way, it's going to lead to more suffering to you in this world and beyond. Well, this little act of compassion that Sticky Hair had done in sparing the prince, that little moment had awakened something in him that allowed him to listen to what the prince had to say. And the prince started teaching him about the merit of non-harming, of kindness. And so as he's listening to the Dharma, the Sticky Hair becomes transformed from this demon into this friendly little forest deva. Well, none of us is going to have to do battle with a giant, smelly, hairy monster. At least I hope not. But right now, we have a monster of another kind. We've got this pandemic, and we've got everything that it's doing to our lives to confuse us and to rattle us and ruffle us and all of that stuff. But you're here because of past good karma. You're a human being, and that's a good thing. Humans can work towards spiritual liberation. A lot of beings can't do that. And because of your past actions, you're able to be here tonight listening or watching this streaming later or whatever, but you're able to listen to the Dharma and you're able to understand it. Some of that karma left us with this body that's subject to disease and old age and pain and all of that kind of thing. There's nothing we can do about that. We're born human, so we're going to experience difficulties, physical and mental. But we have powers that can help us reduce the difficulty that we experience and help get us out of the cycle that brings us back to suffering. So remember, the prince had learned something from this encounter with this sticky-haired monster. He realized that the power of his mind was his greatest weapon. The mind also has 5 weapons. The Buddha talked about these, and we call them the 5 spiritual powers. So sometimes I talk about spiritual powers, and people seem to think that I'm going to talk about clairvoyance or levitation or something like that. We're really talking about spiritual powers of faith, wisdom, energy, concentration, and mindfulness. If you develop those spiritual powers, you don't need to levitate, because you'll have everything that you need to create your own happiness and to get out of the cycle of suffering. So these qualities relate to one another in really interesting ways. So if you click the link in the email that I sent out to the quote, you can read that whole essay, and you see that the Tara is talking about how faith and wisdom work together, and how energy and concentration work together, and mindfulness keeps those things in balance. So faith and wisdom are the first 2 powers. They work together to motivate each other and keep each other in check. Faith in Buddhism means understanding and accepting that karma ripens and realizing that our practice will lead to liberation from the cycles of suffering. I like what the reading said about faith. He said, religious faith is the belief and confidence in the power of the supreme good. So at difficult times like this one, it can be very helpful to remind ourselves that even in the midst of great trouble, there's a lot of goodness. And to keep in our hearts the idea that the supreme good, and you can call it God if you want to, or Dharma, or wherever you want to think of that. But goodness is there to support us. Our Buddha nature is present for us. However you want to look at that, it's there to help you. And faith is the seed of spiritual practice. Without it, spiritual life just won't get going. But it's more than just confidence. Faith comes from the heart, so it doesn't rely on a lot of thinking to be sustained. That doesn't mean blind faith. It doesn't mean believing in something without testing it or anything like that. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you don't have any responsibility for what happens. Earlier this week, stopped at a drugstore of all places, ironically, and the person working at the drugstore started talking about how all these people going crazy and they really should have faith in God, and that would take care of everything. And I agreed that panic is not helpful, and that faith, our spiritual faith, can be helpful to us, but that doesn't mean just believe that everything is going to be okay. We have some responsibility in this. And it reminded me, there's an old joke, and I know some of you have probably heard it before, because probably I've told it before. But there's an old man, we'll call him Mr. Jones, who's very devout. And he believes that, very much believes in God. God will take care of everything. Well, he lives in a town that is downstream, downriver from a big dam. And there's been torrential rains, and the dam is actually going to fail. And they know this. They know this is coming. So the dam's going to fail, and water is going to just completely flood the town that Mr. Jones lives in. So there's an evacuation order. So his next door neighbor comes over and says, Mr. Jones, you need to get ready to go. The town's going to flood. And Mr. Jones goes, oh, that's okay. He says, God will take care of it. So he ignores the neighbor and all of that. And pretty soon, people are packing up and leaving, and a police car comes by. And the cop gets out and says, Mr. Jones, you need to pack up and go. There's an evacuation order. You need to get out of town. The town's going to flood. Mr. Jones goes, that's okay. God's going to take care of it. Well, sure enough, the water starts to rise. And pretty soon, Mr. Jones is sitting on his front porch, and the water's almost up to the top step of the porch. And this fella comes by in a boat, and he goes, hey, Mr. Jones, come get in the boat. Let's get out of here. Let's escape. Mr. Jones goes, no, I'm not worried about it. God's going to take care of me. So not long after that, Mr. Jones is sitting on the roof of his house, and the water is lapping around his feet. And a helicopter comes over, and guys drop a rope down and call down to him, Mr. Jones, climb on up. Let's get out of here. Let's get you safe. No, I'm not worried about it. God's going to take care of it. Well, Mr. Jones drowns. And so pretty soon he's at the gates of heaven, and he's really mad, and he's demanding to see God. And so they take him to see God. And he says, God, I believed in you completely, and yet here I am drowned and dead. Why didn't you take care of me? And God said, well, I sent you a neighbor, a cop, a boat, and a helicopter. What more do you expect? So we don't need blind faith. We don't need that kind of faith. That won't do us much good. We need the kind of faith that reminds us that we're supported by those around us, and by our own spiritual practice too. And so that kind of faith is tempered by wisdom. Faith can move mountains, but we need wisdom to know which mountains to move. And so we can cultivate wisdom about the true nature of reality and about what makes life truly meaningful, and about how to conduct ourselves in ways that harmonize with reality and thus live authentically. So faith is the first of the 5 faculties, but wisdom is, in a sense, kind of the biggest. The Buddha once said that wisdom was like the footprint of an elephant. The footprints of every other creature in the forest could fit inside the elephant's footprint. So it encompasses everything else. But a powerful intellect and deep understanding won't lead to spiritual progress without the emotional power that comes from faith, that manifests in states like compassion and gratitude and serenity. So the next 2 faculties are energy and concentration, and they also balance and support one another. So you might have faith and wisdom, but if you don't have the energy to make use of them, it won't do you much good. And so we're talking here about mental energy, the kind of energy that leads to determination and commitment. The kind of thing that Dogen was talking about when he said, each of us must strive to awaken. Awaken, don't squander this life. This is where this kind of energy comes from. We need to take our practice seriously. When the Buddha talked about this, he would compare us to a man whose turban was on fire. He said, if your turban was on fire, you wouldn't just kind of take your time putting the fire out whenever you got around to it. You get in a hurry to get it out right now. And so this is the kind of commitment that we need to have. But we don't just want to be energetic. We want focus for all of that. So concentration balances energy. You want to develop certain qualities associated with spiritual growth. So you set your mind on that and you direct your activities toward it. Without concentration, focusing your energy, a lot of your energy kind of goes to waste. So you see the importance of energy and concentration during meditation. You have a lot of concentration, but not much energy. You zone out, drift off, or go to sleep. You have a lot of energy and don't concentrate. your mind stays restless and jumps around. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I was leading a meeting somewhere, and a woman came. It was her first meeting with us, and so I did a guided meditation, kind of along the lines of what I did earlier, but more emphasis just on meditating on the breath. And so afterward, I was asking people how it had gone, and she said, "Oh, I started out doing what you said to do, and then I started doing this Native American thing that I learned, and then I started doing this yoga thing that I learned." And she talked about probably 10 different things that she'd done in the course of a 20-minute meditation, almost none of them having anything to do with with the guidance that I gave in the meditation. So I said, "Well, how did that go? How did you feel?" She goes, "Well, my mind never settled down." Duh, yeah, because you didn't give it a place to rest, So you have to put your mind someplace and make that place calm, make that a place for the mind to rest. And then you can develop that sort of peacefulness and focus that we need to make spiritual progress. So wisdom encompasses all the other faculties, but the last of the 5 powers, mindfulness, is kind of like the glue that holds them all together. Mindfulness doesn't really need balance. It should always be strong. I've never thought of anyone being too mindful. I guess it's possible, but I don't think so. Think of mindfulness like this. It's kind of the faculty of remembering in a way that prevents your effort from dissipating. It fights forgetfulness and carelessness and distraction and all those things. So you remember your goal of developing your spiritual life. You watch to see that you're staying on the path, and you continually bring yourself back on track. So let's go back to faith. We need our conviction, and we need to temper that with wisdom. And that includes things like common sense. We need to bring energy to our practice. We need concentration so that we can focus our effort in ways that are actually useful. And we need mindfulness. We need to watch how our mind moves and where it takes us so that we make sure that it takes us someplace we want to be. So that's really what I wanted to share with you tonight. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Takes a few minutes from the time I finish talking until the time it shows up on the thing. So I'll give it a couple minutes. And again, I want to thank you all for being here. The importance of community, it's really important to get together and see each other face to face and all of that. But sometimes we can't. And there are people that are members of our community that can't make it on Wednesday nights and can't travel at night, things like that. So we may try to do more with this after we start meeting at the church again. Well, I don't see any questions showing up in chat, so feel free, though, to email me if there's anything that you want me to talk about in future services. Let me know how this went for you. Technical stuff like could you hear and all that kind of thing, that would be useful for me to have. So we'll end with the combined dedication. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now. In reciting the sutras, hearing the Dharma, and training the mind, great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting 3 treasures, to the 16 guardians and all protectors of the Dharma and their relations throughout space and time, to all ancestors of this Sangha and all beings in the Dharma world. May penetrating light dispel the darkness of ignorance, let all karma be resolved, and the mind flower bloom in eternal spring. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. Let their vows be fully realized, and may they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for the health and well-being of all those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, all those working toward the healing of those afflictions. We especially pray for those around the world suffering from this pandemic. We have members of our congregation and friends suffering from cancer, members grieving for lost loved ones. We hold them in our hearts at this time. We pray for all those suffering from violence and those who grieve for them, for all those living in oppression, for all who are imprisoned who should be free, from all refugees from violence, hunger, and catastrophe, man-made or natural. May they be serene through all their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukha jivino katang punya phalang maihang sabe bhagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share the blessings that spring from the good we have done. All right, thank you all very much.